welcome to Hometown Heroes. This is your co host, Rick Irving, and Mary Staffeld isn't with us today, but she'll be back next week. You know, in life, you meet some people that just pour it all out and give back and do all they can to help others. And this is what my friend Garrett George does. I've known Garrett for several years, and we've had some things that we've done together, some pretty interesting things. I mean, kind of a trip of a lifetime for me that we took. But Garrett, welcome to Hometown Heroes.
Rick, thank you for having me. It's been a long time since we've seen each other, and it's good to see you face to face, even though we're not present.
It's good to see you. Now, are you in Bernie? Is that where you're living now? Or?
No, sir, I'm in New Braunfels, Texas, so I'm right in between San Antonio and Austin.
Okay. And you do a lot of traveling around Texas, don't you?
I do a fair amount. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think we met at an Air Power, maybe an annual meeting or something. We might have sat at the same table or something. And then we met at Fort Hood, which is Fort Cavassa. And I think you went to the Army Futures Command down in Austin with us.
Yes,
And
sir.
our paths crossed quite a bit with Air Power Council and with the Air Power Foundation. So it's good to have you here. And just tell us a little bit about you.
I'm an Oklahoma boy. I come from Northeast Oklahoma. I don't know how much you want to hear, but I was there till I was 12 years old, 11 years old, and I moved out to Amarillo, Texas with my mother. I was living with my dad up there, and ended up at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch when I was a kid. So I've spent about a year and a half out at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch, 12 to 15 years old, and ended up just bouncing around back and forth between my parents, causing a lot of trouble. Had a Monty Heath, you probably know who Monty is. He used to be show up a lot with Carry the Load, and he said this. He said most everything that we deal with leads back to childhood trauma, and I agree with that these days. I'd never thought about it that way, but the divorce was really the biggest hurt in my life until I graduated high school, and my best friend took his wife and took his own life. April 23rd of 1995, and it just sent me on a trajectory of drugs for years and years and years. In fact, I'd be embarrassed to say how many years it was, but in all of that, I graduated high school, started selling cars, and somebody, after Chad died, somebody lined out a line of cocaine on a console of a Chevy truck, and he's talking to me like I might have done this before, like I'd been around it. I'm looking at this thing, look at this white stuff on the console. I said, "Is that cocaine?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Can I have some?" Because I was grieving pretty heavy, and I tried that, and I think 3 days later I was getting into the dealership, and 8 a.m, sprinkling some cocaine on the back of a toilet lid, and thinking I better be careful with this stuff. And it led into a lot of years of that, and finally moving back to Amarillo and being raided by the task force in 2002 for dealing meth and distribution of methamphetamines with intent to deliver. And slowly God started changing my life. I got my real estate license, had to fight for that with the charge that I had. It was I was not convicted of a felony. Do we still have sound?
Yep, we're still there.
I was not convicted with a felony, but I got 7 years probation, deferred adjudication. I got off on 3, thank God. And I went to a church service. What's that?
That was a blessing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. It's funny. I got to know one of the task force members that was there for that day a couple of years later. But I do want to say this, and I don't want to go on too long, but I do want to say that 3 or 4 years later, I was still struggling. I was just being very strategic about when I used speed, meth, and I'm going to church by myself, and they mentioned that there was a prophetic service on a Wednesday night, and that anybody that wanted a show should come. And I didn't know anything about the prophetic, but I showed up by myself, and I walked into this mega church, Trinity Fellowship, and I'm walking through the hallways, and I see people praying for people in the hallways, and I open up the doors to the sanctuary, and people were peppered throughout the sanctuary. And so I backed back out, walked down the hallway, and I just got in the shortest line I could find. And just these two folks that I didn't know just introduced themselves, shook my hand. Never seen them before. I've never seen them since. And they said they were holding a Radio Shack recorder, and they said, "We're going to pray for you. You're going to take this with you when you leave." And I said, "Okay." And they prayed for me for 12 minutes. And I didn't ever remember what they said. And I moved here in 2008 to take a job. I sell pipe. I work in the construction business. I've been doing the same thing for 17 years, working with heavy highway and utility companies, furnishing storm drainage. And I got on an airplane 2009 with a buddy of mine from Amarillo that wanted me to go to Vegas. And I told him, "Man, I don't think I can afford that trip right now. I just got down here and I don't have a lot of money." And he said, "Well, if you can make it, if you can just bring some spending money, I'll get your flight." That trip was aimed at a lot of fun, but I had no idea what was coming. And I got on a connecting flight in Denver, Colorado, and that's when I met Tyson Deaver. And I'll try to condense it, but when I got on that plane, I had my buddy that invited me behind me, and he's a former Army Ranger. I'm a civilian. I want everybody to be clear on that. And I'm walking down this aisle, and I see a seat in the back in the middle, and I see one up front in the middle, and I walked up to this middle seat, and I said to this guy in the aisle, I said, "Man, can I squeeze in there?" And he said, "You're going to hop over me, buddy. I'm paralyzed." I said, "Okay." So I got over him, and I sat down, and I introduced myself to the guy on the right, introduced myself to the guy on the left, and I realized they're both paralyzed. And I looked at him, I was like, "So you guys know each other?" They're like, "Yeah, man. This whole cabin's 13 of us. We're the wheelchair basketball team, and we're going to Vegas to bring the championship back to Texas." And I got goosebumps, and I just started hearing these guys' stories. And on this front right seat was Tyson. And I learned his story pretty quick. You know, he's about 26 years old. He was paralyzed waist down, and he was hit by a materials truck in the middle of the day in his Corvette, getting ready to take his girlfriend to spring break, March 11th of 2005, and doing everything right, blinker on, and distracted driver hit him, kicked him into oncoming traffic. He got hit by a Nissan Xterra again, and he's got a door laying in the road, unrecognizable car in flames, and two civilian guys pulled over on each side, and they both went to rescue him, and one of them picked his door up to shield him from the flames while they pulled him out of the vehicle, and he flatlined 4 times. But in, I believe it was 14 minutes, they had him flown to Brackenridge Hospital and saved his life, and now he's paralyzed. And I've just really resonated with his, I was just really attracted to him and his story. And he's a motivational speaker. And, you know, I'm still playing with dope. I'm still playing with cocaine, you know, and I was going out there and got into some, but that was on a Thursday night. Then on Sunday, I got on that flight, and I'm in the same spot with the same guys, and they won the championship. And I told Tyson whenever we got back to Austin, I said, "I want to get your number and want to stay in touch." And we stayed in touch, and I went and saw him speak in Troy, Texas at a high school. And he started telling me about an action track chair that he was going to get, which you've seen plenty of. And it's for the audience that doesn't know, it's an all-terrain wheelchair that allows these guys that are paralyzed to get around on most any type of terrain. It's a $13,000 to $15,000 chair. You want me to keep going?
Sure, absolutely. Oh.
And so he tells me, you know, in 2009 that he's going to be getting this thing. And I want to say it was 6 months or so later, he called me. And he told me he got that chair, and he's telling me about it. And he said, "Garrett," he said, "I drove as far away as I could from everybody." And he said, "I bawled my eyes out." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I knew I'd finally be able to hunt and fish again." And so I never forgot that. As a lot of you know, Bill O'Reilly was doing his campaign to raise money for our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans in 2013 to receive one of those chairs at no cost. And I believe he was raising the money for about 1,400 chairs. And the Independence Fund was the nonprofit that was taking the funds out in Florida. I just felt called. I was going through a divorce. Go ahead.
The Independence Fund, they do a lot of good work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm glad they didn't take my call. They thought I was a nobody from Texas just trying to get in on this thing, I think. And I called them several times, and I didn't get any response. And I just felt the call to bring all of these contractors that are competing for jobs daily that I sell steel and pipe to bring them together for one common goal for someone else. I wanted to do it for a veteran. I just felt led to do that. And I asked Tyson, I was like, man, would you make yourself available and let's just load your chair up, your track chair up, and let's go visit a couple of these contractors? And he agreed. And we went to San Antonio. He lives up in Kingsland, Texas. Just went to he just got married 2 weeks ago, got to go to his wedding. And I think in a day we had $4,000 worth of commitments, and we didn't have a nonprofit, didn't have a recipient, but I knew it was going to be doable. And didn't take me long to find Trinity Oaks organization, which is a faith-based nonprofit here in San Antonio that's really focused on getting our youth into the outdoors through hunting and fishing, our combat veterans and the terminally ill, and now the sons and daughters of our fallen and Gold Stars. So I went and pitched my vision to them and just told them, I said, I don't need you to do anything but take the money. I'll take care of everything else. I want to put together a benefit and bring in bands and an auction, and we're going to raise the money for this thing. And I think with 120 people, we had 2 bands. We had a bunch of Yeti coolers and fishing trips and guns and knives and jewelry. And we ended up doing it for a boy with cerebral palsy. And it's a long story on why, but his name's Colby Harvey. And I think that night,
is one of the pictures that we have of him?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, so there he's 21 years old. We did this for him when he was 15, and I went and saw him on his birthday. Once he turned 21, we met in Dallas and went and ate a bite. But yeah, we needed $12,600 for his chair, and that night we raised $36,000. And Tom Snyder from Trinity Oaks walked over to me and he said, "There's going to be a lot of money left over here. What do you want to do with it?" And I'll save that story for another day on what I did, what I decided to do, and what I really felt called to do. But he said, "I'll donate to that too. But since this was raised for a youth, would you consider donating these funds to our youth program?" And I agreed to do it. He said, "I'd also like for you to consider coming on board and coordinating all of the dream trips moving forward for any children or adults that are battling a serious illness that desire to have a last and final wish of hunting or fishing." And I got to do that for 6 years with them. And the more I served, the more I got away from the drugs. And it's led into much, much more big things to do than we even have time to go in with. But there's the short version.
Now, you found that by serving others kind of helped you in your recovery.
Oh yeah, it was a long road. It was a long road. In fact, I'll tell you, I've finally gotten comfortable enough to say that I was still doing cocaine whenever I did that benefit. But the closer we got to that benefit, the more I thought, if I choose to do this and I overdose, this kid's not going to get his chair. And it was a back and forth for years of that. And I the more I served, the more I got away out in the country and on events like you experienced, the less I did that. Now it's completely out of my life, thank God.
Because, you start doing that and serving people, and it kind of gives you a fulfillment, and
yeah.
it kind of helps you get away from that stuff. I've got a couple of questions. Whenever your parents got divorced, how old were you?
I was 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't live in the same town after that. I mean,
no, sir. No, sir. We were in El Dorado. We were in Leon, Kansas, just above the Kansas line in Oklahoma. And then when they divorced, my dad moved to Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and my mother moved to Amarillo.
Okay. And then you went to that Cal
Boys Ranch, Cal Farley's.
Yeah. And how was that experience?
Hard, lonely, scary.
Because you were 12 years old, 13 then?
Yes, sir. I was 13. I got out when I was 15. I was only there about 17 months, but I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I didn't care if I woke up the next day.
Mm. And how come you went to that ranch?
I think I got kicked out of most of the schools in Amarillo. We kind of ran out of schools for me to attend, if you will. I think the final straw was me and few friends at 12 years old walking into an open house in the middle of the day when the realtor gone and breaking everything in it.
Mm.
And I was just an angry, hurt kid.
It looks like you've had some pretty good breaks in life, I mean, by going to the ranch and living there instead of going to reform school. But it might be like reform school. I don't know.
Well, I don't know anything about reform school, but I know,
It was,
I don't think we have time to go into how much abuse I experienced and saw out there.
mm. And so then you got into the nonprofit,
Yeah.
and did you start working for them as?
No, sir. I've never done this for money.
No, I mean,
I've
as
just
far
served.
as being a volunteer, did you start doing the fundraising for them or
Yes, sir.
dream trips?
Yeah, I coordinated all of the dream trips, and give you an example. I mean, we did an average of 8 to 12 dream trips a year, and whether you were a cancer patient or somebody that was battling a serious disease that just had a last wish to hunt or fish, we put it together and brought you and your family. And I don't know how many to do. I know we did that many, and then St. Jude, of course, does. I think they at that point in 2017 or 2018 they did up to 12 events outdoors a year, and the rest they declined. And so Trinity Oaks took that on, and we did 52 dream trips the last year that I was there.
So you started doing them for St. Jude too, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Wow.
sir. Yeah.
So you stayed pretty busy. A lot of dream trips.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't say that I was at every one of those, but most of the dream trips for that 5 years I did coordinate personally. And it's,
Because
it was one of, mhm.
you've got to coordinate where you're going to go, who all is going to go, what volunteers are going to be there,
Yes, sir.
what you're going to do, and the food and everything. So I mean,
Yes, sir.
it's a lot of coordination in it.
Yeah, it is. And it's worth every bit of it.
And let's just talk about the dream trip that I got to witness, and that was with our friend Michael Jernigan. He's a
Yeah.
Marine veteran. Got hit with an IED, lost both eyes, and tell us about
Yeah.
how that trip came together.
So Tig, I believe it's Mark Teagan from, he was on the security team in Benghazi, that was told to stand down. Did an event. He has an organization called Beyond the Battlefield out of Colorado, and he moved an event to Reveille Peak Ranch near Marble Falls. It's actually in Burnett, Texas. And buddy of mine, Justin Patterson, another Purple Heart, invited me up to that, and I saw Michael Jernigan there, and he's, this is a guy that, for the audience, I mean, he took shrapnel in his right eye and it exited his left, and he's been 100% blind since, I can't remember if it was 2002 or 2000. It was 2004. And I was just watching him function and watching him smile and laugh, and his wife Kimberly there, and how he would put his right hand on your left shoulder and follow you step for step anywhere that he went, and people just walked him around. But I never felt comfortable enough to approach him. But his wife came to the bar and we had a drink, and I just asked her, I was like, after we talked for a few minutes, I said, so I got to ask you, I said, does Michael enjoy hunting or fishing at all? And I'll never forget her looking at me, and she said, Michael loves to hunt. He loves to hunt and fish, but he just doesn't have any opportunity. And that's where it all started with him. And yeah, that was a beautiful hunt on an 18,000 acre ranch. That's Zach Nightompt, country musician, songwriter. I say more Americana. He'd be mad at me if I said country, but he was volunteering with Trinity Oaks at the time. He's still one of my best buddies, and he actually guided him in. We had a rifle with an eye scope on it, and so Michael is actually on the rifle blind, and they walked him. I was there at the hunt, but I didn't go out on the hunt with them. But the way I understood it, it took them about 3 to 4 hours to get him on an animal with Zach seeing his optics on an iPad and telling him up, down, small left, small right, pull. And it's the axis that he shot at 150 yards.
Yeah, and that place was very rugged, and I went up there with them on that hunt, and
Yeah.
I thought I was going to die.
You did go out with him, didn't you?
I did. And,
Yeah.
Michael, he was going up that hill, and I think he was getting a little tired because it was some rugged terrain. And then we got up there, and I forgot who was up there with us, but I gave him my wife's phone number. I said, if I die up here, would you call her?
Did you really?
I really did, because I didn't
Wow.
I didn't know, because we didn't start going back down until it was almost dark, and
Yeah.
we had that film crew with us, and I was like Michael. I had my hand on their shoulder going down those rocks, but just an unbelievable experience. And it was down just south of uh, where what's the name of that town out there? Ozona. It was
Yes,
south of
sir.
Ozona, and not far from not far from the Mexican border,
Yeah.
and just rugged territory.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience to see him shoot that deer. And then later that night, he shot a big hog. So
I forgot about that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But whenever you talk about these dream hunts, this is kind of the team that was put together
Yeah.
to just. They did all this just for one person, just for Michael. They came from all different parts of the country, different parts of the state, at their
Yes,
own
sir.
expense. And the landowner, he was such a nice guy,
Yes, sir.
and
Yeah.
I mean, God had really blessed him.
Yeah. It's crews like that you're looking at right there, that once you understand who this is for, what we're going to do, how we're going to make it happen, and believe in it. I mean, that's how it happened right there. I mean, you got Hal from Texas Trophy Hunters. That's Brian McCarley. He's a brother of ours that's done so much. Helicopter pilot, former flight medic, and then myself and Michael, and then another Michael. He's one of the donors that brought it all together. He came all the way from Florida. And then we got the ranch owner, and Zach and Robert Harrington, our videographer, Bella Media out of Houston, Texas.
And they did a great job taking care of Michael.
Yes, sir.
You talk about how remarkable Michael is, and you just don't think about how his world is not being able to see. But he'll have his iPhone out, and he'll just say, "I want to show you this picture." And he'll just go say, "Look at that." Michael, how do you know that?
Yeah,
You know?
it's all through clicks. He can tell by the clicks, and it's amazing to see him put in a number. And if I don't know if you remember this, Rick, but and maybe I don't know if it was there, but John Henderson was helping him out at Legacy Farmstead change a sheet. And we put the sheet on, and Michael helps with everything that he possibly can. And then he felt the sheet, and he was like, "This is on backwards," and he flipped it upside down. So I put it on right. He noticed just touching it.
The people that lose a sense like that, they seem to adapt and overcome with their other senses.
I've never
Every
seen
time I
anything like
see him, he say, "Rick, it's good to see you." I said, "Well, Michael, why do you always say it's good to see you?" So it'd be kind of awkward if I said it's good to feel you, you know.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there was one time we were in that lodge, and Michael had gone to the bathroom, and we were all sitting there at the table, and he comes down the hall with a roll of toilet paper, and he said, "Look, guys, don't put the toilet paper on the toilet paper holder. Put it on the back of the toilet." So you know,
Yeah.
after I got back, for probably a year, I left a roll of toilet paper on the back of the toilet, because that way, every time I saw that, I'd think about Michael.
Man, I'm glad that touched you like it did. True.
And they moved up by D.C., and we really missed seeing him. I saw him not too long ago. They still come to the Metroplex, but
Yeah.
just a great United States Marine for sure.
He's one of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life.
And that fellow from Florida, he financed the trip, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he's done more than that. I mean, I remember if you remember Jeremiah Johnson, the soldier that was killed in Niger, Africa, along with 3 other Special Forces guys, 2017. That was all ISIS took his life and those other 3 guys. It was all filmed caught on his helmet camera. And they helped put out an ISIS propaganda video claiming responsibility for the death of him and those other 3 American soldiers. And we, without getting into the details, Michael really helped whenever we found out that Staff Sergeant Jeremiah Johnson, which had bought his daughter a Ford truck with 300,000 miles on it, never made it home to fix it. And we put together a team to restore that whole truck. And he was a massive part of that on the donor side as well. He's a special individual.
He sure is.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about some of these other people. And
yeah, that's Travis Green, United States Marine, double amputee. He's got prosthetics on both legs. That's a cattle roundup we did at Night Land and Cattle Company down in Midway, Texas. Took him and 7 other Purple Heart veterans there for 3 days, served them by chuck wagon. We rounded up a herd of cattle and brought them in from the river. It was the fall works, and gave them shots and cut their horns and castrated them and put them back out in the field, brought country musicians down to sing around the campfire. And another great experience.
Looks like he's a pretty good horse rider. I mean,
yeah, can you believe that? I mean, and he rode horses before when he was a kid, and we never saw that coming. And our buddy Jeremy Locke took that photo as well. 7-time military photographer of the year. Matt Hughes, 9-time UFC world champion. I know a lot of people see or hear him whenever he's come to carry the load with me or meet him down the road, that think that the way he speaks now is from fighting. But yeah, he was in a very serious accident, was hit by a train, and 39 miles an hour in the middle of the day helping a neighbor. No alcohol involved. A lot of people ask. Just didn't see it coming. Traumatic brain injury, 19-day induced coma. He spent the last 6 years relearning how to walk and speak again, and that's an event that he came to because he wanted to come and serve some veterans. He said they've always been my biggest fight fans, so if I can be there for them. There he was.
How did you meet him?
When I came on board with Trinity Oaks in 2013, Matt was a spokesman for Trinity Oaks.
Okay.
That's how we met.
I'd like to meet him and hear his story.
Yeah, you should.
This fella here, it's one thing to ride a bull when you have 2 legs, but it looks like he's an amputee.
Yeah, his name's Daniel Carlton, former Green Beret. And yeah, I met him along the way, took him to that cattle roundup, and then after it was all over, he texted me like 6 months later, and I'll never forget it. I almost want to see if I still have the text messages. And he was like, "Hey, sir, I hope you're doing well." He said, "It may sound crazy, but I've always wanted to ride a bull." And that's all it took, man. I said, "Well, we've got some cowboy friends, and if you're serious about making it happen, we can do it." And that was 6 months later in Brenham, Texas. Took him to some college bronc riding, and they brought a bull in for him to jump on and ride. It didn't last long, but he wanted to get back on, and we put him on 2 more, put him on at the Kendall County Rodeo in front of 3,500 people, and he wants to ride 3 more this year. So you'll be seeing more of that.
My goodness. Has he stayed on one for 8 seconds yet?
No, sir. No, sir. I mean, with the balance, you can imagine how hard that would be to not have
Oh yeah, because they really have to
sides.
use their legs to hang on.
Yeah, different breed, man. That's Guillermo Tejada, goes by TJ. He's also Marine. Travis Green, Marine. 2 Purple Hearts. We took on a Rodeo Austin sporting clay shoot.
But you'll do a lot of fishing and hunting and clay shoots and things like that, don't you? I mean,
yeah, I've done a lot of that. I resigned from Trinity Oaks in 2019, and then I worked with another organization for about 3 years. But this is something that I've just continued to do. These are all current, and that's through my buddy Dauphin Jackson. Go ahead.
You still go out with other organizations to do this, or are you doing it?
No, I created my own. I founded my own.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called G2 Impact. G2impact.org. I think you may know this, but I haven't really put it public yet. I'm still tightening up the website, but anybody that wants to look at it's welcome to look at it. We're continuing on with what I've always done to impact what I call. Go ahead.
What's the website?
It's g2impact.org. And there's, like I said, there's still work to be done there, but yeah, we've got some good. We actually just worked with Nickelback.
Does that look right?
Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
And so, you're going to have the same kind of things for families and for the hunting and fishing part?
Yeah, I want to be able to. I don't want to be pigeonholed to just outdoor stuff. So, like, I want to be able to take these guys to any experience they want to go to, and we've got the influence to do it. We've got the resources to do it. I tell people I've got 5,500 numbers in this phone over a lot of years of meeting a lot of great people and a lot of musicians, and we just worked with Nickelback. They did a huge show. Some people may not know who they are, but the bass player for Nickelback has kind of come into what we're doing, and we got to take 5 Purple Hearts and 4 Air Force veterans to their show over in Gonzales, Texas, about 4 weeks ago. And yeah, it's you never know what's coming next, really.
Yeah, because not everything fits everybody. Just like with golf, you might have a golfer, but he doesn't want to go clay shoot. You might have a clay shooter, but he doesn't want to go fishing.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have, and some of them don't want to do any of this stuff. They just want to go see a concert or hang out someplace else. So.
Yeah, and I try to capture most of these. So there's a lot of content out there, and I've got a heck of a media team that's been part of several of them to capture these events so that we can show people what kind of an impact this makes.
Yeah, that's the key, because you've got to be able to. It's one thing to tell about something, but it's another thing to show them exactly what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is a friend, 2 friends of ours. This is Michael Cornell and Jacob Schick, One Tribe.
Yes, sir.
And Michael Cornell, man, he was a trooper, United States Marine, and had like stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times he did chemotherapy, but it was always another session of it and another session. And he I know he was sick a lot, but he was out there to help others too. So
yeah, you may have been there. I think Rick, you were actually there at Carry the Load whenever I introduced him on Katy Trail to David Mantle for the first time, which was the first time that Michael and I met. And Jake Schick in the green had told me about Michael. And, that was the day that myself, Jake Schick, and Stephen Hawley asked him if he was interested in a hunt. And it's the day that I went to work to put that one together. And so that was a hunt for him and his son that's there with the number 22 One Tribe shirt on.
Yeah.
And they were just getting warmed up, and they both took some black bucks at a ranch over near Gatesville, Texas.
Yeah.
Warming up.
And what was nice to see, because Michael, he passed away, it was over a year ago, wasn't it? Or just about a year ago? Or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
yeah, it's about right.
He did a lot of family stuff. I mean, there were organizations that said, "Hey, he's not going to be around long. Let's minister to their family and send them here and let them do this and get those experiences." So
absolutely incredible what all they got to do, and he deserved it.
He absolutely does. And Jacob, he's another fellow that is out there helping people.
Stud.
And
stud.
One Tribe.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't know, but that dude, I mean, he's got to reach for as far as anybody I know. I think he's probably a wanted man by everybody just to be a part of something. And for him to, he not started in it, but he was an extra in American Sniper, as you know. And then Lady Gaga's a Star is Born. But he's a star himself and just a absolute inspiration.
He inspires a lot of people, and
Yeah.
he speaks to a lot of groups too. So,
Yeah, he's got a look in his eye like no other.
but I see him quite a bit because I do a lot of photography for their group. There's never a time that you don't get hugged by him, and he tells you he loves you,
Yeah.
and he tells you how much he appreciates you, and
Yeah.
and he means it.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
This is a good story here. I really
Yeah.
I really
Yeah, that
like
was a young man. Go ahead.
I really like this story. So
Yeah, I wish I had some more pictures. I know you just told me to shoot you a few, and so I probably could have put a little more behind this, but that was a young man that I got just through what we've all done together over the years to serve. I get reached out to quite a bit to like, Garrett, is there anything that you might be able to do for this family or this individual? And this was a young man that had been diagnosed with cancer and was about to have his foot amputated. The family, once the friend asked me, I was like, hey, can you get in touch with these people? I asked them. We were just talking about things that we could do for him. And I thought that the best thing that we could do was introduce him to somebody that's already been there and done that. And so I grabbed Travis Green and we took a 2-hour round trip up to visit with him and his family and have a burger and let him kind of have an idea of what to expect and know that he's still got one leg and he had his foot removed and is in a prosthetic. And I believe he's back playing football now.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times it really helps whenever you meet somebody that's going through the same thing
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're going through.
Yeah. We need that. Yeah, and that's Dan Carlton again. That's when we put him on the bull at Kendall County Rodeo, and those are all the guys that. Well, the guy in the black and blue shirt on the end with the pink wristbands, Cody Doyle. Cody put that deal together through our buddy Sam Jabera, another Purple Heart that got us in touch, and that's a SEAL team member with the straw hat on. Dan and a couple of federal agents right there beside us. Both those guys responded to the Uvalde shooting, and then myself. That was right after he made his second attempt or third attempt on a bull.
He kind of likes that bull riding, doesn't he?
He wants to do more. So, yeah, we'll be doing it. And that's Tyson Deaver. That's where it all started. That's the guy I met on the airplane. And then to our left of Tyson with the big guy with the vest on, that's Scott Casey. He's Army veteran. He's also on my board. He's a buddy of mine I've known since high school. And there's David Mantle, Mickey Mantle's boy. That's at Billy Bob's at Randall King's concert. Good night.
How did you meet David?
He was out at one of Tig's events with Beyond the Battlefield with Justin Patterson, and Justin's a Purple Heart that I've got to do some things with and collaborate with. And he told me, he said, man, he lives in Dallas, Texas, and you guys need to meet. And he sent me his number, and Mantle has become a brother, a very, very close friend of ours. I've lost count of how many events we've done together. He is an absolute patriot, and I mean, he's tatted from his wrists up with America.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, 70 years old now. That was just about a year and a half ago, right there, looking good.
Yeah, he is. And to have a dad, I know he's got a lot of stories about his dad because I'm sure
Man,
I'm
yeah,
sure his dad was gone during baseball season.
yeah. I've got to hear a lot of good stuff and a lot of real stuff, and him and his brother Danny are some great dudes. This is an interesting story. This is a guy named Marshall Morris, and a lot of you, in fact, I know Carnell knew him, and a lot of the folks in Dallas area met him. David Mantle, and I were actually at the celebrity softball tournament with TK Klund, and I met him with Mantle and exchanged numbers, and really didn't even really remember much about him. But my buddy, country music singer Cody Hibbard, called me and said, hey, man, I got a guy at Black Rifle you need to call. to try to get them involved out of Houston. And it was another Marshall Morris. And I put the number in my phone and I accidentally called this guy, this Marshall Morris. And I was like, hey, you're not with Black Rifle, are you? And he said, no. He said, I think we met in Dallas. And it all kind of came back to me. And we just started talking. He lived in Indianapolis, and he was dealing with terminal cancer. And he had his own organization serving as he was dealing with his cancer, serving others. And he asked me where I lived, and I told him I was near San Antonio. And he mentioned that one of his bucket lists was to see the Alamo. And I said, well, get your calendar out. And he booked a flight that night, and I got to take him on about a 3-day run. And we went to see the Alamo on Saturday. You know, he came in on a Thursday night. I took him to some country music at Green Hall, and then he was here till Monday, and he was thanking me Saturday night at like midnight. And I said, well, listen, man, I said, there's a little bit more coming up tomorrow, so get some rest. I said, we're going to take a drive. And Brian McCarley, our buddy, was waiting. We drove down. We drove about 2.5 hours south down to Valley Wells, Texas, to McCarley's home, and he pulled his helicopter out of the hangar, and we put him in a helo, and we had everything set up with Ox Ranch. And you can look up drivetanks.com, and we landed him right there, and we had him set up to shoot any guns that he wanted to, and shoot a 50 caliber and drive and fire an actual tank. And it was as good for us as it was him.
I bet it was. And did you already have his number in your phone from meeting him in Dallas, and you just
That's
called?
correct.
You just called the wrong guy.
Yeah, I had his number, and then when Cody called me and said, I need you to call this other Marshall Morris, I put that one in my phone, and I just accidentally dialed his instead.
And you made a dream trip for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he passed away about 7 months ago. Ironically, you know, out at they've got 70 different exotic animals out there. It's called Ox Ranch, and I believe it's 18,000 acres, and all these different exotic animals, and 5,000 acres is dedicated to the drivetanks.com. But when we drove past in a Humvee and he saw these rhinoceroses, he couldn't believe, and it was almost like just another God wink, because he said, can we go see that animal? And we're like, absolutely, you can do whatever you want here. We're going to do whatever you want. And, you know, the dude's welled up with tears. And he was like, he was in the car business for years. And he said, I always loved rhinos because they had thick skin. And he said, I always called my sales teams Team Rhino. And here he got to feed these rhinos. It was pretty interesting.
Man. Is that him in the tank?
That's him in a Sherman tank. Yes, sir.
I bet he was on cloud 9 for that.
Yes, he was.
Did you get to drive it?
I didn't. I don't hunt in these trips. I don't take part. I set them up and make sure it happens and anticipate needs.
Just be a witness.
That's it.
And there's our good friend Jeremy Locke.
The one and only. I love this guy.
He is everywhere. You know, he had this podcast and had Don Graves on it a few years ago, and said, Don, is there anything you really want to do? And Don's Irish descent. He said, I want to go to Ireland. I want to go to an Irish pub, drink an Irish beer, and sing Danny Boy.
Yes, sir.
You know, somebody started GoFundMe. I guess Jeremy did. And man,
yes, he did.
People from around the country, you know, they lit up and emptied their pocketbooks, and they took Don there, and he had a Facebook Live of him singing Danny Boy and his Irish beer. And, you know, Saturday we just had Don Graves' 100th birthday.
I'm so glad to hear that. I knew it was coming.
And then Sunday he went to NASCAR and sang the national anthem. And then I think he went to Nashville just in the last couple of days. So we've got an event tomorrow night, and he's supposed to be there. So he gets around better than a lot of people that are 50 and 60.
He's another unbelievable guy. And so is Jeremy. I think Don did that Last Letters podcast with him, didn't he?
Yeah, he did that Last Letters podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, Don's a good guy. I've got to spend a lot of time with him over the years. So
Yeah.
you
Talk
know,
about somebody who gets around.
he's kept driving until he's about 96.
Right.
He lived up by Texas Motor Speedway, and one day I called him. I said, "Don, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm up at the casino." I said, "Who are you with?" He said, "Nobody. I just drove up here." And I thought, man, one night we were going someplace. He said, "I sure am glad you're driving." I said, "Don, I'm glad I'm driving too, because I don't think I want to have you driving." But we were at an event over in Dallas at this Lincoln dealership, Planet Lincoln, for the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln car.
Yeah.
And I took Don over there, and he got dehydrated and passed out, and they
All
thought
right.
he was dead. They were doing CPR on him, and I thought, man, I don't want this to happen on my watch, Don. Come on.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he woke up and looked around, and we took him to the hospital, and that's what they determined, just dehydration. And the next
Boy.
day, he got a care package from the dealership, from the general manager there, and put some stuff in there, but they had some water too. They said, "Drink the water."
What a guy.
You know,
Yeah.
you run into a lot of great people. You've got just the individuals that you help, but then you've got the volunteers and you've got the donors, you've got the families. So, you're blessed to be able to
Yes,
touch
I am.
lives.
Agreed. Agreed. It's like I say, it's been as good for me as it is them. And I think I just released my second podcast as well. And there's going to be some hard hitting stories, and we're going to be interviewing a lot of the people that we've talked about today, and many more on the Dying to Live podcast. So tune into the one that I released literally 1 hour before you and I got on this interview, and you're going to hear a really intense story of adversity overcoming and trauma, addiction, and um, redemption,
You
Brandon
know,
Crozier.
for every person like your guest on the podcast or like you that get overcome with drug addiction, you know, but then you find your way out of the darkness. There's
Yeah.
millions and millions that never get there.
That's why I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very, very blessed, and I'm very, very grateful.
And God's blessed you so you can go bless others. So, what's your next event that you're going to do?
Ooh, what's next? We'll carry the load. I'll be up there for carry the load. We'll be up with some Purple Hearts for that. Right now, I've just been really focused on this podcast and getting this nonprofit launched. I don't have any big plans, but I would expect National Finals Rodeo, something this next year will be happening out there in Vegas with some guys. And so I guess we'll just say that right now and claim it. It seems like once we start talking about this and you put it out there, it's no different than a prayer. It just
It happens, doesn't
comes
it?
to life. That's right. Yeah.
So, you think there's probably somebody out there, maybe the guy that rides the bull, he might like to go to National Finals Rodeo, you think?
I think he's a perfect fit for it. And if we can
Well,
make it happen, we will.
let's see if we can do that.
I'd love to do that.
Because
We can talk more about that and how we can.
I've got some friends that might be able to help him get there. So
Let's keep talking, Bubba.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, Garrett, I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank
And just go to Dying to Live Podcast, and that's at YouTube / at Dying to Live Podcast. And you just released your second one today.
you. Yes,
And
sir.
I started watching it before we got on tonight, and it was pretty good podcast. I like your setup and like your studio.
Thank you.
And uh, let's see if I can find this is your organization's
Yes,
uh,
sir.
website,
Yes,
and
sir.
there you can go find out more about Garrett, more about the organization, and how you can get involved. So
Yeah. And Rick, let me say before we get off of here, I don't think I even know how involved you are, but I've seen you for several years now as And I think you're probably more involved than I am. And I just want to tell you, thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for your service and your continued service to all of the men and women that have fought and that have died for this country, the families. I appreciate all that you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's always good to have a team member like you to go do stuff with,
Let's do
because
some more.
it takes it, you've got an organization, and the lifeblood of organizations are the volunteers and the donors.
Yeah.
And the person that, like you, with a vision, you've got all this experience, and you know how to put things together, and you're going to be able to bless more and more people as the years go. You're young enough to do that.
Yeah, and I just turned 50. It feels like the clock's speeding up a little bit, so let's get after it. It's only getting better.
Yeah, it'll get better. But thank you so much for being here, and I'll try to be over there at Carry the Load and see you. That's just in a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be on the 25th this year, 25th, 26th, somewhere like that. But it's on the calendar, so I know we'll run into each other. If you're there, we'll run into each other. Call me. I'll stay in touch with you. I love you. I thank you.
I love you too, and I'll see you later.
Okay, my brother. Have a great night.
You too.
Yes, sir.
That was my friend. That was Garrett George, and just had some wonderful experience going with Michael Jernigan down to South Texas to that 18,000 acre ranch, even though there was more than one time that I thought that I might die. Just rugged. There aren't mountains like 15, 20,000 feet, but they're pretty big. And the ranch owner loaded up one of his 6-place ATVs to go show us some stuff. And I don't know if he missed the trail coming back, but we were going over boulders. And I thought, if something happens and we have to walk back, it's probably going to take a day or two to get back because it was so far from the lodge or any help. So I'm just grateful that I got out alive. It wasn't that bad, but it was just a good experience to see these men come together to give that dream trip to Michael Jernigan, and to see him to actually witness a blind person shooting an axis deer and then a hog. And I went to Helicopters for Heroes a couple of years ago, and he was there, and I wasn't in the helicopter with him, but he shot some hogs from the helicopter. So that takes some doing. But Michael Jernigan, I'll try to link his book. He's got a good book about his experience, because so many of these veterans that get get hurt so bad and go through so much trauma and so many surgeries. They come out, and a lot of times they're addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol, and it takes them a long time to get back to normal and get away from the drugs and alcohol, if they can, because for every one of them that's successful that get away from it, there's millions out there that are, a lot of them lose their life. They just can't cope anymore, and they take their life, or they just get a hold of things that kill them. But it's great to see Garrett and his new organization. And next week, Mary will be back with us. We had a great night the other night at our war stories. We had 4 Vietnam veterans that told some great stories. All of them had been on my podcast. So I was the moderator, and I know that one of them we had 3 different times for an hour each time. Two others, we've had 2 podcasts with them at 2 hours. So I had to hold it down to 20 minutes or so, but it turned out great. We got to recognize all the Vietnam veterans. Roll call. This is a sponsor of veteran. And if you want to help provide a meal. We have luncheon every month except the month of July. We have about 500 veterans that show up for that. And for like $20 a month, you can support a veteran's meal and help with the outreach of roll call. Donna King, she's going to be coming May the 17th, and she's going to be at the American Legion Hall over on Carson in Haltom City. That's American Legion 655. That's where we had our war story. So Donna, for you that don't know, she was a TV star in Texas Flip and Move. She's a great woman, and she's a house mover. She comes from a long line of house movers, and we went out to their ranch not long ago for Bob Patterson, the Medal of Honor recipient. We had his 77th birthday, and they put on a little rodeo out there for him, and just had a lot of time with Donna and her husband Rex. So make plans to attend that an evening with Donna Snow King. And on the Memorial Day, May the 26th, at the Mount Olivet Cemetery, our co-host Mary Staffeld is going to be the keynote speaker. So be sure to drop by there. They do such a great job at honoring our military and our veterans at Mount Olivet Cemetery. The Air Power Foundation, during the month of June, they want people to sign up to walk 22 miles to fight veteran suicide and bring awareness to post-traumatic stress. Walk anywhere you are and make a difference. So you can find out more about that at airpowerfoundation.org. Another great organization that does so much work for our military families and veterans. So that's their walk next month. And then the Women's Veteran Day Luncheon is going to be Tuesday, June the 3rd. It's at Circle Drive, and the Air Power Foundation, along with TCU and some other organizations, are putting that on. You can go again to the airpowerfoundation.org and find out more about that. And then save the date here, July 31st, is Air Power Foundation's Fort Worth Stock Show, or not Stock Shows, Fort Worth Stockyard Patriot Roundup. They have a great evening right out there in Cowtown Coliseum, right there where they have the rodeo. So it's just a great evening. A lot of stuff coming up, and I hope that you'll be able to attend some of those events, if not all of them. And I'll see you next week on Hometown Heroes, and Mary will be back to help me talk to another great American. We'll see. Iwo Jima survivor Don Graves singing God Bless America on his 100th birthday.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean. Why we're born. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, our home sweet home. Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being a part of Hometown Heroes podcast. Visit our YouTube channel and subscribe today. We look forward to seeing you next week on Hometown Heroes, the voice of heroes, the voice for heroes.